Today's witness is called Shim. He's in his middle 40s, a ruddy, open-air kind of man, sturdy and muscular, slow-speaking, like a man used to long silences or solitude, steady grey eyes, big, capable hands. And he tells of a madman rid of devils and of pigs made full of them. The witness, Shim. You seem surprised to hear I've never been across the lake, across the Sea of Galilee. Well, let me tell you that there are many people here in Gerasa who haven't even been out of the town gates. Why should they? How much you travel depends a lot upon what you do for a living, I think. A cousin of mine who sells cloth is always going across the lake, around the top of it into Galilee. Well, I look after pigs. A pigman, a swineherd. I've one or two of my own, but mainly I look after other people's. I've always done it. I know every inch of the country round here that's good for pigs. But not far afield, not far away. Pigs don't go far afield. And the buying and selling, the cattle market, is here in Gerasa. It's a quiet place, Gerasa. Nothing much happens here, although your mentioning Jesus of Galilee brings back to me a remarkable day. Remarkable. I don't often recall it, except with strangers. Most people here in the town remember it as clearly as I do, and of course it's some time ago now, about 10 or 11 years. Jesus had been gone, how long is it? 8 or 9 years? Well, Jesus came here to Gerasa just once. And once was enough, believe me. I nearly lost my job because of Jesus, although I must admit that I saw remarkable things because of him too. I know that since he died he has become very well known, but he wasn't then. He'd only just started, and news travelled slowly around here. At that time too, the two sides of the lake were two separate provinces. We were Philip, Galilee was Antipas. If you count Decapolis, the 10 towns, 3 provinces. Many changes since. They've all gone. Antipas, Philip, Pilate too. And we are part of Syria. I don't change. I go on looking after pigs. Yes, just once Jesus came, by boat. He landed just south of the town where the low cliffs are. I was up on top with the pigs. I saw this fishing boat with about 6 people in it, and it looked as if they were intending to land at the bottom of the graveyard slope. Well, I left the pigs and started to make my way down to tell them not to, for it was dangerous because of the madman. He lived in the graveyard, in among the tombs and graves for years, the madman. He was mainly the reason they closed it. People were afraid to go there. He was a tall, skinny man, filthy, dirty, naked. His hair and beard were matted and crusty with blood, for he was always falling down and cutting his head on the stones. His eyes were ghastly, wide-staring, open and sort of terrified, and he screamed from morning till night. Terrible noise. I used to leave food for him. For weeks on end, there would be only the 2 of us on that bit of shore, me up on the cliffs and him down among the tombs. I was used to him. If he came too near, I'd throw a stone and he'd scream and run away and hide. I don't think he would have hurt me, but I wasn't taking any chances. There'd been a time when the authorities used to catch him and chain him up, but then he'd go berserk, like a wild trapped animal, and seem to have the strength of 10, and he'd break his chains and fetters and cover himself with cuts and bruises and blood. Pitiful. So eventually they left him alone, poor soul. Left him to rot. A pigman's life is not much. But when I used to see him, I used to count my blessings and collect food for him. He became known as Shim's friend. People used to say to me, "Shim, how's your friend?" and have a laugh. I didn't mind if they put some food in the basket for my friend. but my friend was mad and full of demons and terror, and strong enough for 10, strong enough to kill anyone. So when I saw the men in the boat, I started round the edge of the cliff, shouting. They didn't hear, and beached the boat. The madman was nowhere to be seen, so I decided to risk it, and I ran down the slope, through the graves, towards the boat. Jesus, although I didn't know it was him then, had landed and was walking up the beach. He waved his hand to me. I was about 50 yards away. Then suddenly, halfway between us, the madman got to his feet from a clump of dwarf bushes and began to scream. He had his back to me, so I went on, picking up a big rock in case of trouble. I heard Jesus say something like a sharp order, a command, and the madman's scream took shape, became words, although I couldn't make them out. He asked me asking permission. There was fear in it. Then he was silent. Everything was silent. It was weird. The madman went to Jesus and sat down near him, looking up at him. There was no sound. Then suddenly from the top of the low cliffs the screaming began again, tenfold. It frightened the life out of me. It was the pigs. I started up the slope to them. I thought maybe some wild dogs had got in among them. The screaming got louder and louder, and as I reached the top I was aware of a new noise, a great splashing and thudding. I stopped and looked round. Below me the graveyard sloped down to the sea. To either side the cliffs. And from the edge of the cliffs the pigs were jumping, screaming, into the sea. Many, many more than my herd, hundreds more. Among them, pigmen from miles inland, shouting in despair and rage. It went on, and suddenly stopped. No more pigs. Silence. Down below, Jesus with the naked madman sitting in front of him. Well, the other pigmen and I rushed off to our farmers. We feared for our jobs. And what could we tell them? Only the truth, which sounded as though we were mad or drunk. That some strangers had landed and done some magic and filled the pigs with mad demons which made them all jump into the sea or smash themselves on the rocks below the cliffs. The word went round like a fire, and half the town turned out, rushing back to the cliffs and down through the graveyard. When we got back, the madman at first was not to be seen. Then I realized that the man nearest to Jesus was my friend. Jesus and the fisherman had washed him and found some clothes for him, and there he sat as calm and sane as I am. As I realized it and recognized my friend, so it seemed did everybody else. It was somehow more frightening than the pigs. The town elders stepped forward and asked Jesus to go away and not come back, as his magic was powerful and very costly. For some 2,000 pigs were missing. Most of the elders were our big farmers, and I can see their point. Jesus didn't argue. He and his friends turned and prepared to push their boat off. The madman went after them, imploring Jesus to take him also, but Jesus said no. Then, when the madman began to cry with gratitude, Jesus stopped him. God did it, he said. God can do everything. Go and tell everyone what God has done for you. And he and his friends sailed away. Then there was an odd thing. The madman turned and looked up the slope at the people. They then came across to me. Thank you for all the food, he said. It came true about him being Shim's friend. He's my brother-in-law now.